In the headlines to the CBC NewsNight, the Constitution Reform Report completed and handed over to the President of Barbados. Barbadians told they can have a say on proposed laws dealing with overgrown lots. Local songwriters advised to scale up their craft and aim for the global market. And in sports, Cricket West Indies names its replacement for CEO Johnny Gray.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC Newsnight, starting now.
Good evening and welcome to the CBC Newsnight. I'm Wendy Burke. Barbados is a step closer to having a new constitution. That's because the highly anticipated Constitution Reform Report has been completed and handed over to the President of Barbados, Her Excellency the Most Honourable Dame Sandra Mason. Chairman of the Constitution Reform Commission, retired Justice Christopher Blackman, made the presentation at State House after 27 months of intensive deliberations. He says the Commission produced a report with several recommendations for a constitution for Barbados.
The draft bill which accompanies the report expands the provisions of the current constitution by more than 50%, with a notable aspect being the greatly expanded chapter on fundamental rights and freedoms. This has led to the recommendation for the establishment of a Human Rights Commission for Barbados. While the Commission has recommended the maintenance of the status quo in respect of matters such as first past the post outcome at elections and elections being called at the discretion of the Prime Minister, other proposals limited the powers of the Prime Minister on appointments and the like have been proposed.
Barbadians can comment on legislation being brought to deal with overgrown lots before it becomes final. This is according to Home Affairs Minister Wilfred Abrams, who was speaking during a Barbados Labour Party St. George North meeting last evening. The amendments to the Health Services Bill, which would see the owners of unkempt lots being fined an administrative penalty on their land tax bill, were brought before Parliament in July. The bill and draft regulations were then sent before a standing select committee for further consideration.
We want everybody who has a reason to make a comment on there to come forward and make a comment. The farmers have already made comments. The farmers have said it's not fair to us to have to keep a whole plantation at 2 feet. Well, then you make provisions. You got to keep a certain amount off the road at a certain level. You got to do other things to show us that you're working with us. And there's also a ground for hardship. If for some reason you're a pensioner and you're disabled and you literally just cannot maintain it, right, then you can appeal on the grounds of hardship. We always put in that persons can appeal on the ground or get a concession on the grounds of hardship. You're not being unreasonable.
Mr. Abrams is urging Barbadians to take preparations for the hurricane season seriously, as he notes the impacts of climate events have been intensifying. He says many flooding issues are caused by illegal dumping.
2 years ago, when all Fontebelle was flooded, all Murphy's Pasture, Fontebelle, all the way by Kensington, flood out. Nothing come past. And you know what I was? Before you get to the pump house, by Shafet, there's a grate that's supposed to catch stuff before it goes in the pump house. That grate was full up with plastic bottles. Plastic bottles blocking the grate. Even when we pulled it off, the water went on pretty quickly. But that's the plastic. Every time you throw away a bottle, every time you pelt a Shafet box out the car window or out the ZR window, you are potentially contributing to what is going on.
Aspects of the current legislation governing the island's energy policy, including that of the intervener, are being described as a hindrance to investment. That's according to Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Kerry Simmons. Leading off debate in Parliament this morning on the new Electricity Supply Bill 2024, Minister Simmons said the law is meant to replace, it is repetitive and creates unnecessary barriers to the ease of doing business. He says those aspects will be removed from the legislation as the country goes forward.
An average person come off the street is going to write to the minister, and they will say to the minister, I object, and the minister going to hold a hearing with you. And then somebody else will come and say, I object too, and the minister will have a hearing with you. and you call for everything that the ministry got, the ministry must vomit out its files. And you, whether you are competent or not, you must have access to them. And so therefore the country, meanwhile waiting, can't get the investment moved forward. It could plunge itself into darkness because some egos are large. Oh, Madam Deputy Speaker, the fact of the matter was that this administration, from its very initial stages, introduced a new town planning bill and has a new town planning act. And inherent in that act is the opportunity for the public to air its views on any development. And therefore, ma'am, it is a repetitive and an unnecessary barrier to the ease of doing business for new applications which are already going to be scrutinized by the Town Planning Department to now have to go through more public input again.
Mr. Simmons says there must be balance, which provides the opportunity to move forward the investment.
You don't move it forward because of bureaucratic failing. You don't move it forward because of regulatory lag. You don't move it forward because every single individual in the country is entitled to act as an intervener and objector. And then you don't move it forward because you don't have battery storage. But at what stage then would you move it forward? How far backward are we going to be when others have moved forward? It don't make sense. And that is why, ma'am, this legislation is required to repeal and replace that which took place before and help us with other areas like interconnection and the sale of electricity to the utility, because historically that too has been a source of deep frustration. Interconnection and sale of electricity to the utility.
According to Minister Simmons, the new legislation sets out the roles and responsibilities of the key stakeholders. He says it retains the Electricity Advisory Committee, which advises the minister, approves licenses and assigns rights under license, among other things.
So it has strengthened the hand of the Electricity Advisory Committee, ma'am. And I think that that is a wonderful and good thing, because it enables the legislation to work more efficiently and more effectively in the manner in which it is intended. Now, having said that, we also have an expanded licensing regime. Clearly, we should be able to understand that we have an expanded licensing regime, because before we were only talking about licensing the generation of electricity. Now we are licensing storage of electricity as well. So the regime has expanded.
Meanwhile, there's concern tonight from opposition leader Ralph Thorne that the new Electricity Supply Bill 2024 gives too much power to the minister responsible for the sector. In fact, he contends the increase in power conferred on the minister by the bill contravenes a common law principle.
It breaches the principle of natural justice that a minister who is participant in a transaction involving light and power and licensees is given the right to determine a dispute. You all close down the Fair Trading Commission. It is a quasi-judicial power that has been given to the minister. The minister under this act has been given the power to decide on a dispute between light and power and a licensee. A minister ought not to have that power.
And Housing Minister Dwight Sutherland has been responding to criticism of the bill by opposition leader Ralph Thorne. He stresses the proposed Electricity Supply Bill 2024 is not about price setting, but transforming the energy sector.
This bill seeks to improve the ease of doing business and allow us to get where we want to go with energy transformation in the fastest possible time. We are not dealing with price setting, and I don't want the public to for us to leave this chamber and you send the wrong message to the public that the intervention of the minister is setting prices and dealing with economic regulation. We intervene only to regulate policy.
And in other news from the House, government is extending its tax relief on electricity for householders, which was supposed to expire today. This is according to Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Ryan Strawn. He says government continues to play its part to help the average Barbadian with relief, and householders will continue to enjoy a reduced VAT rate of 7.5% up to 250 kilowatts for residential properties.
The government of Barbados will be extending that relief, which expires today, until March 31st of 2025, as this government's way of bringing further relief, Madam Deputy Speaker, to the people of this country.
Barbadian songwriters are being told to scale up their craft and aim for the global market. The advice from Chief Executive Officer of the National Cultural Foundation, Carol Roberts. She was speaking during the opening ceremony of the International Songwriting Camp, being held in collaboration with the Copyright Society of Composers, Authors and Publishers Incorporated.
Chief Executive Officer of the National Cultural Foundation, Carol Roberts, says the cultural sector is not maximizing on talents as it should. She notes more can be done in this regard.
We often, as a sector, do not like to have those tingly and comfortable conversations. This workshop is also an opportunity for us to do that. Again, we've got the raw materials, we've got the talent. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And really impressive talent per square mile when you consider our size. Where we have to scale up is by opening ourselves to having honest conversations, but also to availing ourselves of information that will help us catapult this talent into, quite frankly, dollars and cents.
Cultural Ambassador, the Most Honorable Stetson Red Plastic Bag Wiltshire, says songs that tell a story and have emotional appeal have more longevity.
The problem here in Barbados is that most of the music that we create in Barbados is attached to our Croppable Festival. And the festival is driving the music. It should be the other way around. The music should be driving the festival so that topics become broader and can last longer. The storylines are broader rather than just joke and jam and wine and fat. Because if they're just that, when the festival is over, it is, I'm expecting another song from you next year. So we have to look at topics and songs that can transcend a festival. I believe that this workshop would go a long way in helping to broaden the thinking of the people who are composing this music.
Veteran singer and songwriter David Curtin says while songwriters need to create songs that are catchy, emotive, or relatable, the focus should be on developing music that can go beyond Barbados' shores.
There's a lot of things to be considered other than just, like you say, writing songs and then hoping it'll get played on the radio. You should have a bigger plan than that. And I keep telling a lot of young artists, there's so many musicians around the world that actually make a living off of music and their musicianship that we have never heard of them. They have never been on Billboard charts, but they buy cars and build houses and raise families without ever being, in the top 10, for example.
It's expected Barbados should see a new caliber of songs being produced following the songwriting camp. Rachel Agard, CBC News.
A St. Philip man charged for the murder of his wife has been remanded to Dodds Prison until October 28th. This after he appeared in the District C Magistrates Court earlier today. 74-year-old Whitfield Rudolph Thomas of Emerald Park West, St. Philip, appeared before Magistrate Joyanne Clark today in connection with the death of Daphne Thomas. He is alleged to have committed the crime on September 20th. Coming up, classes disrupted briefly at the St. Catherine's Primary School.
There is a saying, you can find a Bajan anywhere. Are you a Bajan living abroad? Or do you know of one who has migrated to another country? Well, we at Morning Barbados would love to have you or them on our Bajan Afar segment. Share your amazing stories, experiences, and how you have adapted to a new culture. Send us an email to morningbarbados@cbc.vb, and together we will travel the world.
A knife discovered in the possession of a male student resulted in a brief disruption of their classes at St. Catherine's Primary School today. CBC understands the weapon was found in his bag. The incident caused much concern among students, teachers, and other staff at the St. Philip's School. Officials from the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training visited the institution. Pressed for comment on the incident, communications consultant with the ministry, Gaynell Marshall, said due to the sensitive nature of the event, the ministry cannot go into any further details other than to say the situation is under control. The incident comes just days after the Education Ministry urged parents and guardians to search their children's bags for weapons. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Education has confirmed it has received a copy of a petition by teachers from the Alexandra School about the removal of 2 students. In a statement released this afternoon, the ministry says it remains committed to the safety and security of all staff. It, however, notes the school's principal and board of management must be given the opportunity to follow due process in addressing the matter, and it's confident they will make decisions in the best interest of the safety of the entire school. The ministry says it stands ready to offer support. A local fire officer is pouring cold water on suggestions some grass fires are a result of spontaneous combustion. Glenn Allen, a firefighter for close to 3 decades, is concerned the country is experiencing over 1,000 grass fires each year. Mr. Allen, who's also Chief Admin Officer of the Bajan Firefighters Network, wants Barbadians to take fire safety more seriously.
Let me state for the record, because I've heard it before, oh, the broken glass and the fire spontaneously started. Barbados is not hot enough as yet for the volume of fires that we're seeing to be spontaneous combustion. That's the reality. Many times, people will start a fire for one reason, leave it unattended, the fire gets away, and it goes someplace else and causes damage. So often we respond to fires and see somebody, oh, I went inside to do something, and when I come back, they're all down there.
Mr. Allen was addressing a meeting of the Barbados Labour Party's City of Bridgetown branch. With the Yuletide season fast approaching, he's cautioning homeowners about external Christmas lights.
Those Christmas lights that you buy, yes, the package will say for external use, but they don't mean that you should have them up all year round. The climate that we live in is unconscionable. These things are plastic. High humidity, intense sunlight, it will destroy them. So yes, your packaging says for external use, but after the holidays, please take them down, because fraying and cracking will take place. And you know what? When you come in December this year, you plug it in, boop, bzz, call the fire service.
An Anglican cleric believes Barbados has become a nation of complainers. Senator Reverend Charles Morris says citizens should be thankful when they look back and see the Lord has delivered them from difficult times. He compared Barbadians' behavior after the passage of Hurricane Beryl to others in countries hardest hit as an example.
Look at Carriacou. I don't know if you all saw those people. Carriacou. Everything destroyed. And you saw the interviews. That the people the next day were happy, walking up and down. And then they were asked, but look, why are you happy? They said, we have life. We will rebuild. But in Barbados, the very next day after Beryl passed, the next day Barbadians were complaining that they have no water and electricity.
Reverend Morris was delivering a sermon at the St. Peter Parish Church. He also made his thoughts known about government's new policy on vehicle tints. The Reverend believes motorists should remove the dark tint, as he says it's one method to prevent certain crimes.
Because the gunmen are driving around with their very dark tinted glasses. They have the guns in the back seat of the car and in their hands. So it's only a matter of just pulling down the window and shooting. But you can't see who's in the car. And as someone said last week, they are tinting the windows, even the windscreen are right down. But we complain. Everybody complain, they're going to pay to get the tint done, they're going to do this. What happens if the shootings hit home at you?
From the heart of Barbados, we are your 2024 St. Thomas Parish Ambassadors. Are you aware of the Child Protection Bill of Barbados?
The Child Protection Bill focuses on the best interests of all children in Barbados, with particular attention to those who are most vulnerable.
Furthermore, it emphasizes the importance of proper care for children under 12.
Remember, if a child is left unsupervised for an extended period, it can be considered an offense and lead to legal consequences such as fines or even imprisonment, as it puts the child at risk.
By prioritizing the well-being of all children and holding adults accountable, the Child Protection Bill builds a safety net for Barbados' most precious gems. Let's all protect the children of Barbados, the gems of our nation.
Sports time now with Damien Best. Damien, what we look forward to this afternoon?
Yes, good evening to you, Wendy. Good evening to our viewers and listeners. Some cricket news first up. Linford Invery is the new Chief Operating Officer and Acting Chief Executive Officer of Cricket West Indies. The decision was made by the Board of Directors during a meeting held in Port of Spain over the weekend. With over a decade of experience at CWI in various roles, Invery has played a pivotal role in driving the organization forward, and of course in their strategic and operational initiatives. Most recently, he spearheaded the formation of CWI's 2024-27 strategic plan, which outlines a comprehensive roadmap focused on improving governance, enhancing cricket development, optimizing operational efficiency, and ensuring long-term growth and sustainability for the organization. Invery's appointment as COO will be effective from tomorrow, and his role as acting CEO will commence on November 1st following the departure of Johnny Grave. Well, the 30th and final regular fixture of this year's Republic Bank CPL saw reigning champions Ghana Amazon Warriors suffer a heavy 74-run defeat at the hands of Trinbago Knight Riders on home turf at Providence last night. The Knight Riders went into the match in third place and needed a big win to get into the top two places and progress to the first qualifier. Opting to bat first, TKR posted 211 for 5. Player of the match Nicholas Puran led the onslaught, smashing 101 from just 58 deliveries, and that included 9 fours and 8 sixes, while pacer Shamar Joseph took 3 for 50. Warriors in reply needed to score 104 to ensure their net run rate would keep them in the top 2 and to score 114 to remain in the top spot. They ended up making 137 of 18.5 overs. Ramanola Gurbaz top scored with 36, while Terrence Hines took 3 for 17, and Nathan Edward 3 for 19, and Wakar Salman Keel 3 for 26. Well, despite the defeat, the Warriors still finish in first place on 14 points with a superior net run rate over St. Lucia Kings and TKR. In the playoffs, 4th place Barbados Royals will take on 3rd place Knight Riders in tomorrow's eliminator, with the loser going home. The first qualifier between the Warriors and the Kings will be on Wednesday, with the winner advancing straight to the final. The second qualifier will be between the loser of the first qualifier and the winner of the eliminator, and that will be on Friday. The winner will advance to the final on Sunday, and all matches will be played at Providence in Guyana in that playoff. Tomorrow's eliminator that is between the Royals and TKR will be live on MCTV Sports Match Channel 310 at 7 p.m. while it will be shown tape delayed on CBC TV 8 from 8:03. That is the first half in sports. We'll be back a bit later on, Wendy.
Okay, thank you so much, Damien. Up next on CBC's Newsnight, the Business Report.
We are your voice, the 2024 Parish Ambassadors of St. Peter. Did you know that Barbados has a child protection bill?
The Child Protection Bill acknowledges the connection between child abuse, neglect, and mental health issues amongst our youth.
The bill gives support through mental health counseling to children who have experienced trauma or are living in challenging circumstances.
By addressing the emotional impact of abuse, we can assist children in healing and building confidence, giving them a voice to speak up and speak out. Let's all protect the children of Barbados, the gems of our nation.
In tonight's business report, some local business leaders are preparing for a shutdown at U.S. ports. That strike action could start at 12:01 a.m. Trevor Thorpe reports.
Bridgetown businessmen are hoping the industrial action could be averted before midnight. Chief Executive Officer at Armstrong Agencies, Chris Lambert, says the delays will impact supplies and prices.
The truth is, the longer the disruption continues, there is going to be a long-term impact, or there potentially could be an impact on consumers later on down the road. So ideally, what we want is that either this pending strike to be averted or at least to be addressed sooner rather than later.
Coordinator of the Logistics and Supply Chain Management Department at the UWI and Marketing Officer for the Pelican Tri-Trade Center, Gavin Bovell, says the situation is a good lesson for Barbados and the Caribbean.
And that is why we need to make sure that we develop some competencies within the region to offset some of the demands that we're seeing in the food sector. And that is why the efforts of PM Motley and President Ali and the 25 by 2025 is so critical now. But we also need to make sure that we have the regional logistics to support the movement of those products in a timely manner and in a cost-effective way.
Chairman of the Bridgetown Revitalizing Committee of the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Eddie Abed, is also hoping for a resolution.
Regrettably, there may be some cost increases because anything that interferes with the supply chain will ultimately be paid by the consumer. I think the buyers in Barbados are and have been savvy enough to make sure that they have considered all of this in moving forward, and I think we're going to be okay. I think we're going to be okay. I can't speak too much about food, and I'm hoping that others will speak about that, but general merchandise I think will be okay.
The U.S. longshoremen are taking the action over higher wages and concerns about job security with the advent of artificial intelligence. Trevor Thorpe for the Business Report.
Further economic opportunities for Barbadians may soon be generated in the renewable energy sector. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Kerry Simmons, says they now have to look at ways to allow Barbadians to sell electricity.
Take the natural progress of economics one step further. Remove now, to some degree, the sole reliance on the middleman, which is the public utility. I can generate and sell to you, and you can purchase from me within the context of a grid that is superintended by the Fair Trade Commission so that the rates are seen to be fair to protect all of us as consumers within that geographical space. Superintended by the Fair Trade Commission insofar as the standards of service are concerned, so as to make sure that the service that I am being offered and the standards are being met, are adequate, ma'am. And therefore, we are less victim, held less hostage to the whim and the fancy of a public utility.
Here's how the stocks traded locally and regionally today.
In Jamaica, Victon Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with 15,813,433 units was the volume leader, followed by Vicenco Group Limited ordinary shares and Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited. In Trinidad and Tobago, the West Indian Tobacco Company Limited was the volume leader with 73,368 shares changing hands for a value of Trinidad and Tobago $477,013.19, followed by Prestige Holdings Limited. And here in Barbados, no security is traded today on the regular market.
Books open your heart, your mind, and your soul. They are educational, entertaining, inspiring, and motivating. Are you an author of a recent book you want to share? Then Morning Barbados would love to feature your book in our The Next Chapter segment. Send us an email to morningbarbados@cbc.bb. That's morning without the G. Come and let us turn those pages together.
Time to say good evening to Selma Green. Selma, what's the weather picture going to be like?
It's going to continue to be hot, Wendy, and that's because winds across the area, not only here in Barbados but across the region, winds are light, and that's a significant contributor to warm conditions here. The winds are light at the moment because the Atlantic high pressure system, which generally has a fairly tight pressure gradient responsible for strong winds, that system is very weak at the moment. It's weak because of Tropical Storm Kirk, a large hurricane in the central Atlantic, and Tropical Depression Joyce. They're having an impact on that system, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a moment. And of course, outside of the warm conditions, we're still in the hurricane season, so there's one tropical wave in the eastern Atlantic, and we'll see where that wave is headed in just a moment. Today we got some rain, but it still continued to be really warm. The airport didn't report any rainfall, lots of sunshine though. The maximum temperature 32.4 degrees Celsius, and from that warm temperature of 32 degrees, we dipped to around 28.2 degrees Celsius around 6 o'clock, which is still relatively warm for that time of the evening. Atmospheric conditions very dry and stable, and no reprieve in terms of the winds. Winds continue to be light at that time. And we're seeing conditions real time across the region, and it continues to be relatively warm. The extremities of the region, though, just a little warmer. Puerto Rico, 30 degrees Celsius. Trinidad and Tobago, 29 degrees Celsius. The relative humidity, fairly dry and stable over the northern islands, but moisture from St. Lucia all the way through to Trinidad and Tobago, moisture pooling at the lower levels of the atmosphere. And no surprise here, the winds continue to be light. So our satellite picture comes up now. And as I mentioned, those two systems, we have Kirk, that is in the central Atlantic near the Cabo Verde Islands. And then we have Tropical Depression Joyce, which is about a little under 1,000 kilometers to the east-northeast of the Leeward Islands. But that system is sucking up, those two systems sucking up all the energy that's around, weakening the pressure gradient across the Atlantic. So right now that high pressure system, which generally influences the winds here, it's weak, so we're getting light winds across the region, and coupled with daytime heating, that's going to be causing some showers. The weak ridge is dominant right now, so we're not seeing a lot of clouds across the region, and we anticipate that tonight we're going to see clear skies for the most part, and then there's a possibility of some light shower activity. Tomorrow we expect that there could be some shifts with a trough moving into the area, and that trough will bring some moderate to heavy showers, if we're lucky, to the central and western and southern sections of Barbados. For the rest of the island, we're going to continue to enjoy sunny weather conditions with very few showers. And that's our first look at the weather. We will be back with the details of the forecast in just a moment.
From the heart of Barbados, we are your 2024 St. Thomas Parish Ambassadors. Are you aware of the Child Protection Bill of Barbados?
The Child Protection Bill focuses on the best interests of all children in Barbados, with particular attention to those who are most vulnerable.
Furthermore, it emphasizes the importance of proper care for children under 12.
Remember, if a child is left unsupervised for an extended period, it can be considered an offense and lead to legal consequences such as fines or even imprisonment, as it puts the child at risk.
By prioritizing the well-being of all children and holding adults accountable, the Child Protection Bill builds a safety net for Barbados' most precious gems. Let's all protect the children of Barbados, the gems of our nation.
Welcome back, and let's take in the forecast now. And we start with sunrise and sunset. Sunup will be at 13 minutes to 6 tomorrow, and the sun will set at 12 minutes after 6. Tomorrow, our first daytime high tide will be at 17 after 3. The first daytime low 3 minutes after 9. Seas will be smooth tomorrow in open water. We're expecting northerly swells between 1 and 2 meters. There will be a light chop along the west coast, and the winds coming from a northerly direction, and the winds will continue to be light. Tonight, we anticipate clear skies, few clouds here and there, but not a whole lot of shower activity. And over the next 3 days, we will see varying levels of shower activity, especially on Wednesday and Thursday, where we're expecting some moderate to heavy showers. But of course, the sun will peep out as it usually does here in Barbados.
You're involved in an accident, and the other driver leaves the scene before the insurance representatives arrive.
If you can, use a cell phone or camera to record the scene. A driver who leaves the scene has 24 hours to report the accident to the police and their insurance company. Failure to do so may lead to prosecution.
What if the other driver doesn't have insurance?
If it is confirmed that the person does not have insurance, the necessary court action may follow. Report the accident to the police within 24 hours.
A message from the Barbados Police Service and the Barbados Government Information Service.
Time now for the second half, Damien.
Thanks so much, Wendy. Some football news. Ellerton and Britain's Hill booked their tickets to the Prime Minister's Cup round of 16 last night when they easily won their matchups at Haynesville. CBC's Mark Seal has the details.
Britain's Hill knew a win would get them into the Super 16 of the PM Cup, and they wasted very little time in putting that first proverbial foot in the door when Ray Snag so nonchalantly got behind the defense and got the angle on the Greens goalie. 1-0 in the 14th minute. Britain's Hill had some other opportunities to double their lead, but the one they made count was in the 38th minute. Nifty touches, unmatched speed, and unselfish players allowed Snide to get his brace. No more goals would score in this half or the next, giving Britain's Hill the 2-0 win over Greens and cementing their place in the playoffs. So, Greens didn't bring any joy to their traveling St. George fans, but Ellerton more than made up for that in the next game against Maxwell. In just the second minute, Rashawn Brathwaite knew the ball was in his range. He just wanted the space. And once he made space, he took the shot. The Maxwell keeper seemed to be undone by a deflection off his defender. That was the first. Then 2 minutes later, Rashad Jules was doubling that lead. Maxwell did a poor job of clearing the danger, and he made them pay. That's 2. Just 2 minutes later, in the 6th, a foul committed just outside the area and a free kick awarded by the ref. The goalie was favoring the far post. Jules bended it to the near post with a left booter, and that's 3. A very short skip ahead to the 14th minute, Maxwell again beaten for speed and formation as Ellerton crossed the ball into the area virtually unchallenged for Mario Hart to get the score with a one-time touch. That's 4-0 at the interval. 6 minutes after resumption, Ellerton were at it again. There was no lifting of their foot off the gas pedal despite that sizable halftime lead as Hart got his brace. 4 defenders in the area, yet Hart seemed unmarked for another one-time strike. That's 5. Then in the 53rd, Jules went 1 up on Hart. 2 Ellerton attackers had their shots at glory. So with their muffs, Jules decided to get more. Again, hardly challenged, and the shot goes through the side netting for his hat trick. That's 6. From the first goal, you knew that Brathwaite favors himself with the mid to long range strikes, but on this effort, he was playing it inside for the possible header. Or was he? Did he call goal? Well, the Maxwell custodian didn't seem capable of stopping either, so it was Brathwaite second, and that was now 7. Up to this point, the 65th minute to be precise, it was the Jules, Hart and Brathwaite show. Raheem Headley wanted peace though, and he got his. Jules made all the initial moves, then as per the theme of the game, Headley was left virtually unmarked. And he definitely wasn't going for a finesse at the far post. That left bomb made it 8. And for all the hard work he did throughout this game, no one would grudge Jules as he got his beaver trick. This time his teammates did all the heavy lifting, and he was the beneficiary. That's 9. 9 goals for Ellerton in 68 minutes of work. Maxwell did manage to get a consolation goal in the 86th minute. Tyreek Holder got a slight deflection from his free kick, which was aimed over the wall. That 9-1 result, however, saw Maxwell out and Ellerton on to the round of 16. Mark Seal, CBC Sports.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Well, the tournament continues on Wednesday at Bridgefield, with Cave Hill taking on USA at 7 p.m., followed by Empire up against Martindale's Road at 9 o'clock. That is it for sports for tonight. Wendy, it's back over to you.
Thank you so much, Damien. We'll return after the break.
There is a saying, you can find a Bajan anywhere. Are you a Bajan living abroad? Or do you know of one who has migrated to another country? Well, we at Morning Barbados would love to have you or them on our Bajan Afar segment. Share your amazing stories, experiences, and how you have adapted to a new culture. Send us an email to morningbarbados@cbc.vb, and together we will travel the world.
Thanks for viewing. Do enjoy the rest of your evening.